Okay, so I see there's some new people here. So welcome to Monday Night Mishlei. We, as usual, if you want to participate, don't raise your hand, just interrupt because I can't see everyone. Okay. And again, for those who are new, our order of operations here is we're going to start off with translating the pasuk, going to the minimalist mafarshim and the English translations, asking our questions and problems, and then brainstorming and seeing if we come up with the idea before we go to the actual mafarshim here. Okay, so we have chapter 10, pasuk 5. Oger Bakait ben Maskil, Nirdam Bakatzir ben Mavish. Who wants to be our initial translator this time? This one's not so bad compared to our tooth-breaking other ones. Right, last week we had 4 permutations, and the week before we had no idea of what the pasuk translated as. Surely someone wants to try translating.
I don't remember what Oger means, but I could translate the rest.
He's a monster. Yes, Oger is one who gathers. Go ahead.
Okay, so one who gathers in the summer is a wise son.
Yeah, I would use, not to nitpick, but since Shlomo Melech nitpicks, what's better than wise son would be a ben chacham. What is maskil?
Intelligent?
Intelligent son, yeah. You go with intelligent son, okay.
And I guess one who slumbers in the harvest, during the harvest?
One who slumbers during the harvest.
Is an embarrassing
Yes,
son?
is an embarrassing son. Okay, good. So translation is pretty straightforward here. Let's just go to our minimalist mafarshim and see what happens. All right, so we have Metzudas David who says, Oger is inyan asifa. So inyan means to gather. Okay, and he brings a pasuk from elsewhere in Mishlei that says Agra bakatzir, one who gathers in the harvest. And then nirdam is lashon tardema v'hi shena amuka. Okay, so let's just modify our translation. Just shena amuka is a deep sleep. Okay, one who is fast asleep during the harvest is an embarrassing son. I actually don't know where fast comes from in fast asleep, right? It's weird. It's not really fast asleep. You're kind of slow in your sleep, but whatever. Okay, so that's the Metzudas David. And I'm actually just going to delete it now because we can incorporate that into our translation. Okay, Sadigon says something weird, which when I first read it, looked like he's not adding anything. He says, Haben hamaskil oger b'kayitz, the intelligent son harvests in the summer. Haben hamevish, and the embarrassing son nirdam b'katzir, is fast asleep at the harvest. So what is he adding to our translation here? What is he trying to point out?
He flips around the each half of the pasuk.
Yeah. So he flips around within each clause. He flips around the words there, right? So he says, one who is an intelligent son gathers in the summer. But one who is an embarrassing son is fast asleep in the harvest season. Okay, yeah. So which one do you think is easier?
Sadigon seems easier.
Sadigon seems easier, right? Because the literal translation really seems to be saying that if you do this one activity, that means you are an intelligent son. But if you're fast asleep, then you are an embarrassing son. So I don't know. That seems like a lot of baggage to put on this one activity that we're going to determine your status about whether you're intelligent or embarrassing, based on that. Or Sadigon is just saying, no, one of the things, an intelligent son does many things. One of the things he does is he gathers in the summer. One of the things an embarrassing son does is he is fast asleep at the harvest season.
I have a question that's possibly a methodological question.
Sure.
Given that way, it seems to be what the pasuk indicates, like what the pasuk means. Why would Shlomo not write it like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me just repeat that question here, right? So if Sadigon reverses the syntax, and Isaac's question is if that's what Shlomo Melech meant, why would he write it the other way? So what do you say? Not you, Isaac, but anyone. I have an answer, but I want to hear what other people say first.
Wouldn't by phrasing a certain way, it allows for more ideas, presumably, and it allows you to see beyond the obvious, simpler one.
Okay, so one possibility, which I think is my go-to possibility, is that my general go-to possibility, if there's ambiguity in the pasuk, is that it's ambiguous because it could be read in different ways, and the different ways allow for different ideas. And so if you said it Sadigon's way, maybe you would only be getting one idea, whereas if you say it this way, then you can get multiple ideas. Okay, good. That's one answer. What's another?
I don't know if this is really an answer, but I think it's not such a stretch to read the pasuk this way. Like, I don't think it's like a very convoluted.
Yeah. I think in the Hebrew language, then you could read it both ways. And in fact, we got a reference to this week's parsha. Hold on. Let me show you this because it's cool. I forgot which of the Mefarshim says this. I know I saw it. I read a lot of Mefarshim this weekend on this week's parsha, so I don't remember who says it. All right, let me just open up a new window here. Anyone know what I'm going to reference that has the same ambiguity? And it's in the first Aliyah. And it has to do with Yaakov and Esav. No? Okay, so let's see here. Let's get rid of this English. Okay, so this is in when Rivka goes to ask about I guess this is kind of in line with Donnie's answer that he just said, but I guess depending on how you look at it. So this is when Rivka senses or feels the kids fighting in her belly. Okay, so she goes. So it says so she felt her sons beating up on each other in her innards. And she said, if so, why am I like this? However you want to translate that. And she went to go inquire of Hashem. And for those who are in our secret, not so secret Unkelos society, then it means that she went to go, just because this is pshat here, she went to go lemitba ulfan min kadam Hashem. She went to go seek learning from Hashem, which seems like a lot of the Mefarshim say that she went to go ask a Navi. Okay, fine. So what did the Navi say? V'yomer Hashem la, Hashem said to her through the Navi, Shnei goyim bevitneich. There are two nations in your belly. Ushne lu'umim mi'aychi paredu, and two regimes will separate from your innards. Ul'om mil'om ya'amatz. Okay, and I always forget how to translate that. That's a hard thing to translate. We're going to ignore that for a second. V'rav yavod tza'ir. How do you translate Rav yavod tza'ir?
The older will serve the younger.
The older yavod tza'ir will serve the younger. Okay, or what would be the other way to translate it?
The older will work the younger.
Nope. Think our plus. I think our same ambiguity.
Older
here.
will enslave the younger.
Nope. These are all saying that the verb yavod is a verb, an action done by the older. What would be the other way? And the older, the younger will serve. V'rav yavod tza'ir. The younger will serve the older one. So I forgot who I saw. It might have been Shadal. Let's just check because he's right here. Shadal. Chaf Beis. No, it wasn't him. Okay, fine. Yeah. So someone who I read said that was a deliberate ambiguity because we all know what is the relationship between who serves who in the Yaakov Esav relationship. What's like the rule that ends up being by the end of the brachos?
Yaakov serves Esav.
Yaakov, well,
I mean, Esav serves Yaakov. Why am I saying about it?
well, okay, Esav serves Yaakov, but what bracha does Esav get? Say it again. I just didn't hear you, Leah.
When we're good.
Yeah, right. But then when we are not deserving, when we're not worthy, so then Esav can throw off our yoke and then enslave us, So it's a deliberate ambiguity. So I'm just showing that from Chumash that's a legitimate way to read the pasuk here is that, I mean, I'm not a grammar guy, so I don't exactly know like how to explain it grammatically, but Oger Bakayit's Ben Maskil or Ben Maskil Oger Bakayit's, I don't even know if that's the exact same principle here. I'm just showing that you don't, you can reverse the order of the syntax, it can be read both ways. Okay, fine. So that's all. Maybe that was, those who are grammarians can correct me about this. I'll get angry emails, but okay, yeah. So that's one reason why there might be ambiguity. There's a simpler reason though, other than teaching us multiple ideas. And you got to remember, and the hint is that Mishlei is Mishleic.
Syntax of poetry.
Yeah, poetry, right? Is that either syntax of poetry that we can understand? Sometimes we see why it like we did a puzzle this morning in my Mishlei morning class that rhymed. And if you messed up the order of the words, it wouldn't rhyme, or syntax of poetry that we don't understand. Like there are, just like in Shakespeare, there's a rhythm, that you have to follow certain rules. So too in Mishlei, there's like that. So Isaac, that's all I got for you. Either there's an idea there, or that's just Hebrew poetic syntax or Hebrew syntax in general.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on with our translation, then we'll get to questions now. So the Targum I included because I didn't see anything new that he was adding, but maybe someone who knows Aramaic better than I do can see. Defaleach b'kaita bara suchlasana. So one who works in the summer is an intelligent son, or literally suchlasana means an understanding son. I don't know why he changes it from masculine to understanding. I don't know if that's significant. Who? Okay. Udedamech b'chatzda, and one who is asleep at the harvest. Brahu mavahasana. He is an embarrassing son. Other than the suchlasana, I don't see anything like noteworthy here. So I'm gonna delete it unless anyone objects. Okay, then we got the art scroll or normal order of operations here. We do the 3 English translations. Art scroll says a wise son harvests in the summer, but the shameful son is fast asleep at the harvest time. I'm going to delete that because that's basically the same as ours, except art scroll translates it even looser. It says wise son. It should be intelligent son. Living Nach says the intelligent son gathers. Oh, you know what? Oh, I am recording. Good. I thought I wasn't recording. All right. The intelligent son gathers during the summer. The embarrassing son falls asleep in the midst of the harvest. Oh, that's interesting, right? That's different. What's the ambiguity for those who are following the Hebrew? What's the ambiguity that the Living Nach is picking up on different than what we did?
Ba.
Yeah, the bet, right? The ba katzir is that he is like, when the harvest starts, he is asleep, or he falls asleep during the harvest. Okay, don't know which one it is. Falls asleep in the midst of the harvest. So I don't know. Maybe that was a Freudian slip there. That's the hardest translation there. I don't know. And then Alter says a clever son stores up in the summer, but a disgraceful son slumbers at the harvest time. So that's also different because he's saying Oger. Metzudas David said Oger is gathering, but Oger can also mean to store. I'm trying to think of an example where that's used that way. Not sure, but yeah. So the question is this like just a synonym for harvesting, or is it storing for the winter? And a disgraceful son slumbers at the harvest time. Okay, so no radical differences compared to previous weeks. We just have several nuanced differences here. Okay, so let's now go on to our questions, and we'll do what we usually do, which is we're not going to commit to one of these translations now. We'll figure out as we go. Okay, so what are the questions we need to answer here?
I have a question about the summer and the harvest season. Are those the same times of the year?
One question is, what is the difference, if any, between harvest season and summer? Okay, now this brings us to a methodology point that was raised last time, and I want to just interrupt our questions to go to, because this is kind of part of the translation thing here. So let's go to the Malbim. So again, general Mishleic principle here in terms of Mefarshim. The vast majority of Mefarshim say that it's totally fine that Mishlei uses synonyms and repeats the same words in different languages, same ideas in different words, because it's poetic. Okay, and anyone in Hebrew anyone who knows any language knows that you have to switch it up, otherwise it gets boring, right? Except the Malbim. Okay, the Malbim is the one who insists that every single word is different and every single word is essential to the idea. So let's look at what the Malbim says. So he says on this pasuk, first of all, he says, okay, Oger, yesh hevdel bein Oger uvein Asaf. There's a difference between Oger and Asaf. Mekabetz, Oger. Why is it Mekabetz? Why is there a comma there? Oger mitzayin shemiskabetz hagargarim achas achas. Okay. Oger, that's the first word in the pasuk, which we translate as gather, implies that he's gathering the individual berries. Okay. And then I think this is a pasuk. Vishemen lo ta'agor. I don't know what that means. Agra b'kayitz ma'chala. Oh, he's just quoting different psukim, even though this edition doesn't say it. Okay, fine. But here's another question. The question that my mom asked: B'kayitz b'katzir hakayitzu achar hakatzir. Kayitz, summer, is after the harvest season. Okay, so that's what the Malbim says, and I'm not going to spoil you with the Malbim's idea right now because we're not in the idea phase. But just to go here, hold on, let's just go back here. So we have here Malbim. I'm just going to write this as a note just so we remember, in case you care about it. Okay, Malbim says that Kayitz, summer, is after harvest season. Okay, so again, this is a machlokus in how to learn Mishlei. No one that I saw other than the Malbim differentiates between the two. So for all intents and purposes, we could take it as synonymous. But if you want to be like the Malbim and say that every single word in Mishlei matters, so then you can make the idea contingent on that. And if you want to take a middle approach, which is what we typically do, is we're going to treat them as synonyms. But then if we find an idea that happens to be expressed in that nuance, then we'll rejoice. Okay. So good question, and we'll take it for now as though they're synonymous. But we'll list the question because it's a good question. Okay, next question.
Relation eyes.
Yeah.
There's a question. Why? I understand often there's this certain balance that requires there be treated as synonyms, but what if it's meant to juxtapose extremes in a sense? Like, and these words don't seem to be synonyms. I mean, shasa katsira, right? Even in Yontif and time, we're talking about the spring or the early time of the season, and Kayetz, I think, is an easy one in terms of being summer.
Right.
So, are there limits to that principle, or aren't there situations where balance is not necessarily the right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you also have to go with your intuition. Like I'm kind of formulated as a methodological, war, about like two different approaches. But like at the end of the day, you have to go with your intuition. In the same way that, let's say, like in the same way that when we see Ben Moskiel, then when Tamar translated it as wise, I said, well, intelligent. Maybe here wise and intelligent are the same thing. Like maybe it doesn't really matter, and there's no real way to know for sure in any given pasuk. And in every given pasuk, each of the Mefarshim, takes it in a different way. You got to go with your intuition and then, see what results you get.
Matt?
Yeah.
Hi, just a couple of questions. One just glaring issue here is why is the term mavish and opposed to I don't know, maybe like a stupid person?
Okay, good. So why is shameful or embarrassing? I don't. By the way, I don't know what the better translation is here because I like the word embarrassing because it's mavish. He causes shame, where shameful could just be like he himself embodies shame or experiences shame. So I actually like embarrassing. Let's say why embarrassing, son? Son instead of foolish son, right? Which would be the natural opposite of intelligent son. So in line with this question here, I guess. Actually, I'm going to broaden the question. How are these two opposites, right? Why embarrassing son instead of foolish son, or why I guess not proud son. What's the word I'm looking for?
Glorified.
Yeah, glorify. I'm trying to think of a word that like if mavish. Well, okay. Let's ask another question. What word can you ask on just the phrase mavish, embarrassing, other than like just what can you ask on that word in isolation?
I'm not sure what you mean.
If you just had the word mavish.
Who
to whom? Yeah, exactly. Right. So embarrassing to whom? Right. So what are the possibilities?
To himself.
To himself.
To
his parents.
His parents. I think those are basically the two possibilities because he's an embarrassing son, right? We're not saying an embarrassing person. So either he's embarrassing to himself or he's embarrassing to his parents, which is why he's being referred to as a son. So I'm looking for now, and going back to question 2, why embarrassing son instead of foolish son, or why intelligent son instead of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not pride giving, like son. Accomplished son. Yeah, let's say accomplished son, right? Yeah, successful son, something like that. Yeah.
Prodigal son.
Prodigal. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the question is like, how are these opposites? You know, it seems like it's using two different values to characterize each of them. And what did we see? What did we learn from methodology last week? So last week we had the pasuk of contrasting the charut, the diligent person, with the remia, which was both the cheating person and the lazy person. And we learned that from that incongruity, we learned that there's a relationship between like laziness and cheating, and then diligence and honesty, you know, at least in that context. So maybe there's something like that we can get from here. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a technical question. So we said earlier that according to the Malbim, he's saying that the harvest season, the summer is after the harvest season. I mean, the harvest season is during spring, right?
Summer is after
Pesach,
the harvest season.
After Pesach, that's the difference between.
Right. Katzir is like Shavuos, right? That's Chag Katzir. And then Kites is going to be like what we call the summer, I guess.
Right. So my question is, according to the living.
Sorry. Did I get that right? Someone correct me. Did I get that right? Kites is yeah. Right. Katzir is the harvest. Okay, good. Sorry, I wasn't listening to myself. Yeah.
Right. So my question is, according to the living Nach, where the intelligent son gathers during the summer, which is not the harvest season, how is it a contrast between the second half of the pasuk, where the embarrassing son falls asleep in the midst of the harvest, which seems to imply before the summer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like if you're gonna take the Malbim at face value and say that these are two different times and one's before the other, you're gonna have to insert the word even somewhere in there. Like the intelligent son even gathers during the summer, you know, like after the harvest, or the embarrassing son falls asleep even in the midst of the harvest, like when all the action's going on, you know, something like that. It's gonna be like a chiddush. So there's gonna be like some sort of like extreme, you know, like Donnie was saying, an extreme at both sides. Okay, other questions on the pasuk?
So I don't know why it's bothering me so much. Oh,
yeah. No, go ahead, Ruki.
I was just gonna say, like, the fact that it uses the word like sleep, because I feel like, what is that actually telling us about him? Because I know obviously we're assuming that he's lazy because he's in a Mishlei pasuk.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what is implied by nirdam? Okay, which is deep sleep. Okay, and it's like, you know, you do have to wonder, is this? I mean, it's hard to say that this is literal, right? Like, it sounds like this is hyperbole, right? Because
I was literally thinking, like, he's not a bear. Like, he's not.
I was just gonna say that exact sentence. He's not a bear. He's not hibernating through the entire. You know, even bears don't hibernate during the summer. Yeah. So I don't know if it means he sleeps in or like he is lazy in some sense. We'll have to play with like how it is. You know, like, you know, how far to take the non-literal reading, but it seems like hyperbole, and Mishlei definitely uses hyperbole. I mean, that's again, the general principle to know. Just, I feel like in general, if this were more promulgated, then people would be learn differently. Where's the Gemara? I quoted it recently in a shiur. I'll have to look at the source later. Dibra Torah b'lashon havai, Dibra Nevi'im b'lashon havai, Dibra Chachamim b'lashon havai. That the Torah speaks in hyperbole, the Nevi'im speak in hyperbole, and Chazal speak in hyperbole. You know, like it's a figure of speech. You know, it's a figure of speech, and Mishlei definitely does this. So yeah, what is implied by that? Yeah, literally and idea wise. Yeah, good question.
Maybe he's exhausted from harvesting, from gathering.
Yeah, but then he would be the intelligent son, right? Then he would have harvested.
Why can't it be the same person?
I mean, I just don't think we would call him embarrassing then. I think we would say that he, you know, I mean, maybe you can come up with an interpretation like that, but I think that's not implied. It seems like Mishlei is criticizing him.
Right.
Okay, what else?
To like elaborate on that question, you could ask like, why is the pasuk drawing a comparison between one who gathers and then one who's sleeping?
Okay, that's also good. Right. Okay, good. So why is he how is gathering the opposite? And that's actually a good question, because that could lead us to, like you said, that could lead us to an answer, you know, that could by inferring from that, because we understand why the guy gathers and we understand what that means, I think. Yeah, okay, good. What else?
I have a question.
Maybe this is just asking like, what's the idea? But it seems pretty obvious that if you're sleeping through, then like it's not going to be smart.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously better to gather
cool.
and sleep through it.
So this is a pasuk that you can say the classic duh question on. Okay, obviously, if you're asleep during the harvest, then you're going to fail. What is the chiddush / parentheses new insight here? Yeah. Okay. Good. That needed to be asked.
I also had a question.
Yeah.
So, embarrassing implies that the person who is embarrassed understands that they've done something wrong. So if they're asleep, you think that they didn't know what they were doing was wrong.
Well, embarrass implies that the person who experiences the shame,
there's like some awareness there.
Right, but it's on the person who experiences the shame. So if this is talking about the person, then I think your question is stronger. But if it's talking about the parents, then like maybe the kid doesn't even really acknowledge the fact that like he's doing anything wrong. Yeah, it's a good observation. So I'm gonna just add that to question number 3 then, okay, which is the son aware that he is embarrassing? Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good nuance.
I have another question. So this is more of like a methodology question, but I'm just a little bit confused.
Not allowed. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, so I'm just a little confused because I feel like in general, and I don't know every single Mishlei pasuk, but I feel like usually they're more geared towards like, a specific person or like to like yourself. Whereas I feel like this one is more like about the sons, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess ask the question as a, how would you formulate that question?
So I guess what I'm really asking is like, how is this meant to be taken? I don't even know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Think soapstone.
Audience?
Yes. Who's the audience? Okay. Yeah. Okay. For those who aren't in the know, that's AP English code. Soaps for subject, occasion, audience, purpose, and speaker, and something you should ask for everything you read. Okay, and that's something we definitely ask for Mishlei. So who's the audience? And we might as well do the other ones also. Okay, which is what is the purpose? Okay, which is what is the practical? I guess that's kind of asked in Ayala's question here. Okay, which is what is the practical decision-making insight here? Yeah. Okay, good.
I have a question.
Before we ask a question, I just want to make a meta methodology point. So on what Rivki was saying. So you notice the way that Rivki tried to formulate her question first, which was based on how Mishlei Psukim usually are. And then she expressed doubt about whether that question had a basis because she hasn't learned every Mishlei pasuk, So that's why I wanted to formulate it. This new formulation is much more of a we can ask it on this pasuk without like burdening ourselves by like comparing it to elsewhere in Mishlei. Like just who is the audience of this pasuk, and we don't have to like get involved in like is this normal or abnormal. You could just like ask the question here. So I think that's why I formulated it in a different way. Who said they had a question?
Me.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the question is, what is unique to like the act of harvesting that this pasuk is trying to teach us? Like, is it about like the timing or like the, I guess family relationship is important because he's referred to as a son, but like what is unique to the act of harvesting? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, good. So let's put it this way. Okay, let me see how we put this question, which is I'm going to ask this in a less than ideal way, but someone feel free to reformulate this. Why is this idea expressed in the example of harvesting? Okay, meaning I feel like we all get this vibe that this idea will extend to beyond harvesting. Like those of you who are in the shiur and are like, well, I don't harvest, so this pasuk is irrelevant to me. I think you're severely misguided. Okay, like I think it's clear that this pasuk should extend beyond that. So the question is like, why in terms of harvesting? Yeah. By the way, I if I looked quizzical when you were asking the question, Shifra, it's because like I saw the name and the name and the voice didn't correspond, and it was Hayadayim. Kol Yaakov Hayadayim de Esav. I just got very confused. So yeah. I'm just used to seeing a different. Yeah, I see your name Shifra there, but for some reason I thought it was your mom's name. I got very confused. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, so I think those are our main questions, right?
Can I ask a question specifically about like the harvesting thing?
Yes.
So it's not such a directed question, I guess, but like if you're gonna be lazy during the planting season or whatever, why would you? How would you get all the way to the harvest?
Okay,
like
good.
Why sleep then?
Oh, good. I totally forgot about that question. The very first time I learned this pasuk, that was the key question, and I did not remember that for the last couple times I learned the pasuk, evidently. So the question is like, okay, let me. So it was like this. It says he's fast asleep at the harvest time, right? So what does that imply that he was not asleep during?
The rest
Like planting season.
Yeah, the planting season, right? The stuff leading up to the harvest, right? Because if he was asleep during then, what would it have said? Probably.
He's asleep during the planting season.
Like he's asleep during, like, instead of work. You know, it would have said something that was much more universal. You know, the fact that it's like specifying during the harvest season. So I guess what are we to? And now you don't have to learn it that way. You can say, yeah, he was asleep during the harvest season. Sorry, during the planting. But like the main thing is like you got to make sure that you harvest. You know, you could answer it. But let's just say, what are we to infer from the fact that it says it only says he was asleep during the harvest season? Was he asleep during was he not asleep during the planting season? If not, why not? What does this say about his laziness, right? It's just like a weird thing. The fact that it only says he's asleep during the harvest.
Yeah, I think my question is also like, I think specifically like this is, as far as like delayed gratification goes, this is like the last step.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. So come on, guy. This is the last step. That's what we say. You can do it. All right.
Isn't the last step grind, making something edible out of what you harvest? Like,
well, the last step is avodas Hashem, that we make bread so that we can survive, so that we can live a life of Tzelem Elohim. But so it depends on it depends on how far you take it. But I guess in the what do you call it? I don't know if I'm just making stereotypical assumptions that like these sons were they were involved in the harvesting and like the women were baking the bread. I don't know if that stereotyping is reasonable, but I guess
I'm just thinking in terms of the Lamites Malachos, right? Katsir is not the last step in the process of making the food.
Right. So I guess what I'm thinking here is that if I am assuming kind of what Schiffer was saying, which is that the context of this whole thing is the harvest. So I'm just thinking about it in terms of the harvest, like not for the what you do with what you harvest. Also, we don't even know that this is bread, by the way. And in fact, I don't know the nuances of the Hebrew well enough, but when the Malbim said that, when he interpreted gathering as the berries, I don't know if he meant, we call things wheat berries. I don't even know exactly what those are, but I don't know if he meant, I don't even know if we're talking about wheat here. I guess that's my point here. I don't know if this is just like all produce or whatever. So we might be just talking about fruit. Like this might be the last step for all we know.
Can I say something on the last point, or do you want me to wait till like we speak about ideas?
You can say something on the last point. I think we're done with questions.
I was just wondering or thinking really that I feel like it's just talking about a specific type of like laziness, or I'm not sure what characteristic it is, but if you literally go through the planting and you do all of the steps, and then at the last step, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do it, or you just don't put in any effort, I feel like that's really a very, very specific type of personality trait.
Yeah, it's not your ordinary garden variety, field variety laziness, right? Yeah. If you can work all that time, then yeah, that's true.
I also was wondering about the specific use of the word sun. Like, why?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't list that. Yeah. Why frame this in terms of sun? Right, because we acknowledge that that's a possibility if this is addressing it to his parents. And what would be maybe what might be an argument you can make that it's addressing this to his parents, those who have been coming to the shiur for the last 4 weeks?
You see, the way that the pasuk can read is also could be for the parent could be the unwise. not the sun.
Yeah, that's also true, right? Yeah, it could be that a parent who produces this. So anyone know what I'm alluding to though? Why might he have chosen to talk about the son? Because the first pasuk in the parent talked about parenting, right? And not that we are, again, our derech in terms of like, the way we're learning is we're learning each pasuk on its own. But you do see Mefarshim who say that like, large clusters of psukim are loosely related, and it could be that since he started off the parak by advising the parents on how to parent their kids, then he went to another pasuk about that also. Why did he go to the two psukim about the tzaddik and eating and in between? I don't know, but like, there are going to be Mefarshim who say that. I'm just, letting you know. But it's a good question either way. Okay, I think we're ready for to try to figure out the ideas now. Okay, so is there anything we could delete here? Let's just make things small. Yeah, okay, so who has ideas or answers? You know what, I'm gonna just move these guys down here. We'll move everyone but the Malbim down because I, for some reason, have a hard time remembering this Malbim about which one comes first. Oh no, don't look at the Yosef Kimchi yet. Spoiler. Okay. All right. Anyone have ideas or answers?
I mean, I have an approach.
Sure, approaches are good.
Actually, the last two questions is kind of actually the question 7 and 8 has kind of really sparked some thoughts. Maybe you could say that harvesting is kind of just used as a almost as like a metaphor for work in general, because at least back then, I mean, harvesting and planting was a very important thing to do to survive, for food. So too over here, if you're working and if you're at the last mile or at the last step of the work, which brings me to the next question, number 8 is it's like you're at the last point, you're literally at the last mile and you're going to give up. That is embarrassing, which
yeah.
Which kind of brings me back to my question I asked: why are you using the term avish? Right. I mean, it is kind of a bizayon, and honestly, like it could be embarrassing to himself and to his parents also. The more I'm thinking about it, because it's embarrassing to himself because he's working, he planted the seeds, he's working up until this point, and all of a sudden he's just stopped.
Yeah.
He finished a project. He didn't finish a project. He's like, I don't know, like 95% of the way there, and he just dropped it.
Right. I mean, so let's take that approach just to see where it leads. I believe this is the first time I ever learned this pasuk. That was the approach I took, and I don't remember what I came up with. So let's see if we can get an idea from this. And that's like picking up on what Rifki was saying also, that it seems like a very peculiar kind of laziness where you've worked all up until the last step. And generally speaking, I don't know if I mentioned this before, so I'll mention it again anyway. Generally speaking, when I was in my Mishleic training, then I used to be very inclined to go into the psychology, and Rabbi Moskowitz would always have to reorient me and say, focus on the decisions themselves and the consequences. But some psukim, you do have to go into the psychology. And I feel like if we're going to take this approach, we kind of have to ask, like, what is that guy thinking? Like, what's going through his head? Yeah, Donnie, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just had another question, I think, and we sort of this Oger B'Kayetz, it seems like almost like enough's enough. Like you're going beyond the right time. Seems like
You're saying according to the Malbim.
If you're interpreting them differently, yes, or at a later stage, or if it's at a different stage of harvest, or whatever it is, it almost sounds like, greed, or like, working on Sundays when there's a cab driver working on Sundays when there's no one out to hail it, just like, that's work harder when you should or could.
Okay, good. So I'll add that as a question. Okay. If Kayetz is indeed later than Katzir, then why is this guy doing extra work or work past the prime time? Yeah. Okay, good.
Matt, I have an answer to your question.
Okay, to Donnie's question just now, or to my question about the psychology?
To your question about the psychology. I think the answer to the question is he's just fooling himself. He's just he feels by planting the seed or the 90% of the work is already done, it's just, to himself, it's like almost like a certain sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And that could be dangerous to a guy because, well, he's just fooling himself. He's just deluding himself to thinking that, all right, I'm basically almost finished. I'll just stop now.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good approach, right? So let's take that then, right? It's the feeling that, here's how I would put it, is that.
But by the way, this happens to me all the time.
Okay.
I do this all the time.
All right, when it comes time for real world examples, then you'll be the first you can volunteer. But in other words, like this, is that according to that approach, it's not laziness. Okay, according to this approach, it's not laziness, right? It's this feeling that the product should result because you worked for it, not that it should result from the actual way you interacted with reality. In other words, like, I put in all this effort, I deserve the final product. And what'll happen is, like, you will, I mean, they say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. I know that's a different proverb, but, like, you'll feel like, I put in all the work, I should just get the thing. But the thing is, you don't get the product from putting in the work. You get the product for doing the work, like, not just putting forth the effort. You get it from actually like doing the process. If you don't do the process, then you don't get, if you don't, again, I think that's why the pasuk is expressing in such a duh way, is that who on earth would think that he could plant crops and have them grow and he would get them without bringing them in? Only someone who's not operating in reality and, like, feeling entitled to the product because he demonstrated or put forth this effort. And it's not to minimize the effort. Like, this guy might have done a lot of work to plant. It's just that it's not the effort that it's like if you say, like, I tried really hard. Well, yeah, guess what? In reality, trying really hard is a very important skill, but trying really hard does not produce the results. Producing the results produce the results. Some people try really hard and they don't get the results. And some people get the results and they don't try hard, Is that the approach you're taking, Ariel?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's a good idea. I like that. So according, let's just take this idea home, and then we'll try another approach after that. So let's see if this answers our questions here. Okay. So according to this definition, there's no real difference between this explanation. There's no real difference between harvest season and summer, so we don't need that. Why is it embarrassing versus foolish? I think we can answer that now also. Why is it embarrassing versus intelligent instead of embarrassing versus accomplished, or foolish versus intelligent?
Well, I mean, it's nothing to do with intelligence. It just has to do with it's definitely embarrassing.
Yeah. So I think the simplest answer you can get is, like, again, I think it's almost connected to the duh thing. Okay. Like, what were you thinking? Like clearly there's no way to get the crops without you doing this. And it's embarrassing because, like, can we define why it's embarrassing?
Because, like, this person wasn't being stupid. They planted the plants during the season where they had to plant it. And now they're just, like, kind of forgetting about it at the end of it. Like, they know how to plan. They know how to harvest.
Yeah. It's like, it's not that this person is somehow incapable. They clearly have shown their capability. And it's right there. They're just not what it kind of reminds me of this. It's not exactly this, but, like, when you see these examples of, like, a person who is running a race, and, like, he's way ahead, and, like, he slows down to, like, gloat, and then he, like, trips and then loses the race. It's like you were right there. Like you clearly demonstrated your capability. Like, why are you not following through with it? But can we get it in more definitive terms? I think Leah's right, but, like, I feel like there's something we're lacking.
I think it's, like, it's very obvious that you're fooling yourself. Like, sometimes you could, like, seem like you don't know.
Okay.
Or, like, things like that. But this is, like, you're obviously kidding yourself.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. That's the type of answer I was looking for. Right? Is that it's not lack of ability, and it's not lack of understanding about how this is supposed to work. It's just self-delusion. It's raw self-delusion. Yeah.
I have a question on that, actually.
Sure.
So I was thinking that I feel like it kind of is a lack of not just, like, self-delusion, but also I feel like it's a lack of understanding reality, which I feel like goes even further than just self-delusion, if that makes sense.
When you say lack of understanding reality, you're not saying that he actually, like, doesn't know that you have to bring in your crops. It's like, it's not real to him.
But it's like recognize that not being able to recognize that, like, because I feel like it's very related to timing. Like this whole pasuk is very related to timing. So I feel like, I don't know. Now I forgot my point. I was just saying I feel like it's not just self-delusion, but it goes even further than that in a sense.
Okay, if you think about what that quality is, then let me know, because I'm not seeing what you're getting at right now. Okay, deep sleep, I feel like, according to this idea, is not really essential. I mean, maybe you can say that the fact that he's so, like, there's a sleep that I don't know.
He's in delusion.
I don't want to take
oblivious.
This though.
Oblivious, like a tardema, like, unconscious.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he has no cares. Like, there's a sleep where you just like happen to oversleep, and then there's like there's nothing you have to worry about. Why should you have to get up? Yeah. Either way, I don't really feel like it's essential to the idea. It's just the fact that he doesn't see any need to, like, any urgency or any need to act. Okay, embarrassing to whom? To himself.
Rabbi Schneeweiss.
Yes.
I always was under the impression that Neardom was the guy was like nodding off.
So I'm pretty sure Tardema is deep sleep. I think halachically it's that, and certainly the Metzudas David said that it was a deep sleep, Shena Amuka. And you see that also from Adam in the first instance of Tardema is Adam when God does surgery on him. You put him into a Tardema, and I think that makes more sense to say that's a deep sleep than a nodding off.
Thank you for clearing that.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't think it's talking about somebody who necessarily literally sleeps through a harvest. It's
no,
just
right.
Who's so oblivious to the point of being almost comatose, like that now's the time to take advantage of the harvest, but he's just paralyzed, not doing what he has to do.
Right. I mean, I feel like I don't know. I hope this doesn't apply to anyone in the in the shiur, but I feel like I often hear stories about very successful, accomplished people who are like one credit short of like getting an advanced degree or something like that, and like they just never completed their coursework, so and they're fully awake. It's just that they're just not, there's something preventing them from like taking that last step. So that might be another example. Okay, who's the audience of this pasuk? So according to this idea, who would be the audience? And let's see if we can get as specific as possible.
Why does it have to be so specific?
Because I think this is not as general as we thought. We thought when we first read that this was just about a lazy person, but we've narrowed it down, I think, more specifically.
So when you say audience, who do you exactly mean? Because I was gonna answer, well,
Ariel Rachmanov.
Anyone can learn this idea. It's like,
yeah, but who needs this idea?
I have a suggestion. It's shiur, by the way.
Yes, you see now. I'm reading it correctly.
I think it's directed towards like a family dynamic, because harvesting, especially because it uses the word son, like he's like, obviously this is a responsibility that his family is depending on him to complete. Like,
that's a good point.
For sustenance,
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess the question is like this or not the question. I guess the two possibilities are like this is, if you're going to define it by the scenario, then what Shiur's saying is correct, is like, anytime where like consequences are riding on your taking responsibility, then this would apply. Certainly if other people are dependent on you. But Ariel, what I was thinking is like, when you catch yourself in a situation where you're 95% complete and you feel like your job is done, that's when you need the pasuk, like the pasuk is telling you, like, that is absolutely delusional if you think that your work is done, if you haven't actually finished the work,
Right. So it's only for people who are in that situation, then the pasuk.
Yeah, that's what I meant by, like, I think according to your idea is a much narrower idea, which is fine, but I think we needed to like just define that, it's not.
I guess I just feel like that's everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, because in others like this is the lazy person is also out of reality, but in a much more severe way than this guy is. Like he's got bigger problems. This guy is like, his laziness kicks in, or not his laziness, I keep saying laziness. His misplaced sense of accomplishment kicks in at a very specific point in his like, success trajectory.
Could it be procrastination?
I feel like Tamar's question on number 8 and the fact that we're kind of assuming that he's done all the work shows that it's not like he's prone to procrastination in general, because he did plant when he had to. So I just don't think that there's a basis for saying that here. Maybe according to another interpretation, yes. Okay, so we answered number 8. That's where the whole idea came from, and we also answered number. Yes.
I think there's I know we're going to have to ask forgiveness from Rabbi Moskowitz, but I think that there is a psychological disease where people are afraid of accomplishments. In other words, what happens is that if you accomplish something in some people's minds, if you accomplish something, then that means that there's a responsibility to keep on accomplishing and to keep on thriving and to keep on, gaining higher and higher. And if a person who has that disease accomplishes something, then more is going to be expected of him. And I think it was, in other words, it was an agrarian society by Mishlei, and the son is important because he represented the heavy workforce that would be tasked with supporting the family if, like, the father failed. In other words,
right,
like you see in China, there's infanticide, that the parents only want boys because the boy will hopefully support the family.
Right.
So I think that idea runs through the whole series of questions. Yes.
Yeah, especially the emphasis on the son, because I think, I think without that, my initial objection to you was going to be that I didn't see evidence for saying that this is framed in a sense of accomplishment, because I didn't think that the harvest really, like, you're talking about closing a business deal or like getting a degree or, becoming a doctor, something like I can see how that applies, that there's a certain pressure and expectation that like devolves upon you when you reach a certain level of success. I didn't see that in the pasuk, but then if you're saying that it's talking about like just the general expectations put on the son, then maybe that would be a psychological motive for this type of resistance. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so I think Ariel, that was a good idea. So let's see now in the remaining time we have, do we have another approach? Because I think the approach, Rivki, did you figure out what you wanted to say? Because no, okay. Because I think, I don't know, I apologize. I can't remember which of these psukim we learned in our group over the summer or not, but an idea that you were starting to say sounded a lot like the Metzudas David.
That's very cool. That's why I was thinking that.
It's possible, yeah. Okay, Isaac, did you say something?
Yeah. Sorry, I think I missed something.
Yeah.
Why is it that the son would not quite clear why, like, what exactly is going on such that he's like only, I don't want to say lazy, like not acting at the end.
Well, Ariel, we were saying two different things. Ariel was saying that he feels like he has already accomplished it, and I was suggesting that comes from this feeling that my work is what determines the like my effort is what determines the outcome, not the actual interacting with reality. So when you get it 75% done and it's almost done, you feel like I've already done it, and that's why I invoked the don't count your chickens before they hatch, because a person who has all those eggs feels like he has chickens, but he doesn't. He has eggs, and a lot of stuff can happen to eggs,
Meaning he's relating to it in terms of the work that he's putting in, not in terms of the reality of the thing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
When he feels like he's put in enough work, then so most of the time it overlaps with the person who's actually relating to it properly and going to get it done.
And that's why I liked it as an elegant solution to this thing, is that this is a guy who has done a lot of work, as we see from question 8. He has planted and done everything up until now. But he and that's what makes him feel entitled to the result. But really, at the end of the day, or at the end of the harvest season, you just have to actually bring in the crops. Otherwise, you don't get the crops.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about this as well? Or Isaac, sorry.
Let me add one more point for Isaac's answer, and then the other answer was the one that Leslie just gave, which is that he's stopped in his tracks because of not because of a feeling that I have already accomplished this, but because of a fear of what accomplishment would bring, that now I'm going to have to like, take over for the family, or like my, or the pressures of my parents, some other, like more psychodynamic type thing.
I see.
And that would fit in very well to the examples that I just said of like why a person would not finish getting a college degree or something like that, because it would mean that now let's say, I mean, let's use an example. Let's say you don't finish medical school, like you're very close, but you just don't finish it. Maybe because you don't want the responsibilities of being a doctor. Maybe you don't want people viewing you that way. Maybe you don't, maybe you feel like a fraud. I mean, whatever the particulars are. But that's like a resistance to the feelings that come from the success. Whereas Ariel was saying it's much more of the feelings that come from the work that went beforehand.
I see.
Yeah. Tamar, what was your question?
My question was, if anyone has on hand like an example of, let's say like the way that Ariel was learning it, right? That you like, or that you like, you put in a lot of effort and you feel like you're done. So like the harvest example, I think seems like it's supposed to be very like obvious, but is there maybe like a more sneaky example that a regular person might fall
Ariel's
for?
apparently loaded with examples. Ariel, you have one?
Good example. I started a Megillah Sasser 5 years ago. I've one more
like writing it. You're saying?
Finished it.
You saying you started like writing it?
I started writing a Megillah 5 years ago for Rosh David.
Yeah.
4 years later, I have 1 year yet left.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I can't get.
There you go. There's an example. Yeah.
I have an example.
Okay. Yeah.
So this past summer when I was doing work, like, I would get to the part where my work was basically done. All I needed to do was just review it and like write a brief description, and then I could submit it for review. And like that part would take me so long to do because I just had a hard time being like motivated enough to do it.
Yeah. I hear. And sometimes the feeling I've done so much work expresses itself as pride. Like, I've done so much work, I'm entitled to the results. Sometimes it expresses itself as like, but I've done so much work, why do I have to do more? Like it's different ways, but both of them come down to the same mistake. It's that I did this much work, I shouldn't have to do more work to get my result, either because it's already accomplished or not.
Yes. Maybe as part of the fast asleep is that he feels accomplished. I mean, it just all the examples keep reminding me, where I have, let's say, working all day long on a brief or a filing, and then till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, I was close enough to finish. It would be easiest to finish now. It'd be best to finish now. Instead, you go to sleep, and then whenever you turn back to it, if you can get your energy back to it, it's always going to be much harder. It's going to be way less practical and efficient. And instead, he's checking out, when the opportunity is there.
Yeah, that's a good possibility. Also, I like that. Yeah, and that also puts the fast asleep in a different light, that you just collapse into sleep almost. Not literal sleep necessarily, but in your example. Yeah,
it's turned out to be a really good therapy session, man.
That's all Mishlei. All Mishlei is therapy. In some
Can
way.
I ask a question that I probably should know the answer to?
Sure.
Isn't the summer before the harvest?
I mean, I'm kind of relying on the Malbim here because look, Katsir in Torah is Shavuos. That's Chag HaKatsir, so it starts off the summer. I assume that's where he's getting it from. So what you're thinking of? You're thinking of the of Sukkot, which is the Chag HaAsif, which is the end of the harvest season. The harvest season is longer than we tend to think of it. You start cutting stuff down, which is why we call it Katsir. That's at the very beginning. It starts right after Pesach, and then all of the bundles are left on the field, and then you bring them all in at Sukkot time. I think that's why.
Where does summer fit into that? The beginning is
summer's in the middle. You go Katsir, that's Shavuos, summer, and then Chag HaAsif, which is Sukkot at the fall.
So then it would seem to be saying that the intelligent person is gathering in the middle of the harvest, but the fool is sleeping at the beginning of the harvest.
Yeah, that we didn't really go into because my default assumption is that they're just synonyms. But yeah, if we wanted to go into that, then we'd have to figure that part out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me show you one more idea just for tonight, which is the Metzudas David. Hold on just one second here. Stop sharing and share the Metzudas David. So he says, Ratzalom or Ben Maskil Darcho le'esof garno b'yemei hakayitz ve'ose kol davar bizmano. So it is the way of the intelligent son to gather all of his I always, Gorin is greenery. I always wonder if that's the word or if I'm just associating to green because it's the same letters. I think it's his grain, right? in the time of the summer, I don't know. And he does everything in its time. Ben Mavish of Haksil asher kol davar busha nimsabo, but the fool that all matters of embarrassment are found in him. Darcho lios nirdam be'es hakatzir ve'ein osa shum davar bismano. So his way is he's asleep at the harvest and he doesn't do anything in its time. Okay, so he puts the emphasis on time. And I think there was someone else who says this. Hold on. Give me a second. Flipping through. The Radak says something similar. He says, Oger b'kayitz, Hadam hamaskil hu mechin b'kayitz tevua l'tzarche michiaso. So the intelligent son will prepare in the summer grain for the needs of his sustenance. Ki az yimsa hadvarim yoser bezol. Because then he will find things that are cheaper. Everything, the prices are down. Ha'atzel hu hefka, but the lazy person is the opposite. He does say lazy. Kihu nirdam be'es hakatzir, because he's fast asleep at the harvest time. V'lo yikne bezol, he will not buy it when it's cheap. Ukeshiyavuz man hachoref, and when the winter comes, yikne kol davar biyoser, he'll have to buy everything at a more expensive price. Valkein yavoli deboshes, and that'll come to shame because he's paying a lot of stuff for things that he could have bought cheap earlier. So according to that, then both of them are putting the emphasis on the fact that he doesn't do things in its proper time. That's what makes him an embarrassing son. So I think what we said, Rifki, now tell me if this is ringing a bell or whoever else was here. Shifra, I think I forgot if you were here, Shifra, during this particular pasuk, but that the mistake is part of laziness is this sense of timelessness, that things will go according to my schedule and I don't have to go according to reality's schedule, because remember the laziness according to Sadigon is the compulsive need to avoid all immediate pain and conflict. And so as soon as you feel that conflict, you'll be like, oh, I'll push it off. And there's this feeling that like things will just revolve around when it's convenient for me. And because he never actually wants to work, he'll be asleep, and he'll sleep through the windows of opportunity. And the windows of opportunity is the key idea here, because reality does not work on your schedule. Reality has certain times when you can do stuff, and then the window of opportunity closes. If you leave your bundles on the field, it'll start raining and then everything will rot. Or if you wait till the winter, then the prices will go up and you'll have to pay a lot. And that's the shame, is that the lazy person is so out of reality that he just expects things to go according to his schedule, when really that's not how things operate. And when it's found out, kind of like what Tamara was saying earlier, it's embarrassing because it's clear that this is an obvious error. It's like, not to trigger any students who are applying for college or seminary right now, but it's like students who wait to the last minute and then they miss the deadline and they apply after the deadline. Like, what did you expect to happen? Like, they call it a deadline because it's like dead after it goes past the line. Like, it's the college is not saying, oh, deadline, when's the deadline? Oh, it's whenever you want things to be sent to us, and you know about it in advance. Like, this guy should not be surprised when the harvest season ends. Like, it happens every year at the same time, so it's like embarrassing because it reveals how far out of reality he is. And it's not a matter of like a mistake. It's a matter of delusion, so different idea, but both of them, I think the idea is that Ariel's approach and then these two approaches have in common is that there is a certain, thing where you're outside of reality. And in Ariel's idea, it's expecting the results to be produced by your raw effort. And according to this idea, it's expecting the schedule of reality to go around you. And both of those are going to show that you're, prove to be an embarrassment for you when you don't get the results that you were expecting. So I think that's the main idea that we take away from there.
Also, just to emphasize, like the idea that the Radak brings, it was, one of the reasons I feel like it's such a good idea is because like I feel like he's also, I don't know if he was implying this, but I feel like when you're in that situation and you miss out on that opportunity in the present time, you're also missing out on the future opportunity. So like he was bringing the example of like with buying things when they're cheap, so therefore you can sell it later on. Like I feel like that's a very good idea to emphasize that you're missing out like twofold because
that's a good point, right? That's a good point. Is that you could have gotten your sustenance now and saved money, and then you're instead like having to scrounge for enough money to get like your food in the winter, and like you're losing out. Yeah, that's a good point.
Sounds like last week's idea though, or very, very similar.
That you mean Radak's idea of doing everything in its time?
In terms of, we saw the laziness there was just like doing it inefficiently or doing it in a way that was the tilted scales.
Yeah,
basically it was.
I feel like that's a very different idea. I mean, even though they were both about laziness generally, is that with the tilted scales, there was a, I mean, both let's say what they have in common and what they're different. What they have in common is that both of them have to do with the rigidity caused by being repelled by immediate pain, you know, and the rigidity in last week's pasuk caused the guy to look for illicit means to make money, which would set him up for getting caught and then being at a loss, and held him back from like constantly making adjustments to improve his business. You know, here we're saying that the rigidity is making him miss windows of opportunity that are going to cause him a loss and prevent him from gaining profit. So it is two manifestations of that same rigidity. And this is an important methodological point in Mishlei, is that like, I mean, I forgot if Rabbi Moskowitz is the first one who said this, but you know, you could summarize all of Mishlei in one sentence, which is Ezehu Chacham Haros Anolad, who is wise when who sees the consequences of his actions. But that's not going to affect the emotions. The only way to affect the emotions is to show them in particular examples again and again and again, in order, because the emotions only respond to particulars, you know? So seeing this one idea of laziness manifesting in this mistake and that mistake and that mistake and that mistake has an impact on the emotions. So as long as the manifestations are, if the manifestations were the same or the decisions that it was talking about are the same, then I'd be worried. But I think these are two sufficiently different manifestations and decisions.
I was really more drawing the example for the positive side of the pasuk.
Oh, for the point that Rivki just made at the end.
Yeah, the efficiency, the least effort, the most outcome,
I hear
the best outcome.
Yeah. Okay.
It reminds me,
yeah, Joe.
Yeah, it reminds me almost of like when you write a beautiful paper and then you have to just, you know, proofread it. And
I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to say because I didn't want to like tilt my hand about how I feel about my yeah.
Yeah, and you just don't want to go through it. It's just such a grueling process, you know, like, you know, restructuring sentences and moving commas and, you know.
Yeah.
Or taking out words to be under a word count. Personal issue I have, and you just don't want to deal with it.
Like maybe you're making critiques on Leah Cohen's paper, and like you tell yourself like, oh, I should really just finish this before shiur, and then you're like, no, I'm gonna push it off because you know, it'll get done somehow. Yeah. Or did I get too personal there? I thought we said this is a therapy session. All right. If there are other questions, I'll stay on as long as people have questions. But if not, then I think this we got two good ideas, and we'll continue next week.
I have another example.
Okay.
So when I took the GREs today, and when I was in the last portion, I finished with about 10 minutes left, and I had a feeling of like I wanted to just stop because I was at the last portion and I could be done, but I was like, I have 10 minutes. I should go review my you know, like the section, which I did.
Okay, good. Yeah.
But like,
I actually think that's a separate idea. I mean, I think what you did obviously made sense, but I feel like there you can argue like when you're done with the thing and you could just improve it. I feel like that's different than not harvesting the crops, you know? Like what that almost reminds me of is a puzzle we didn't do in the Monday night class. But that was a puzzle where like Rabbeinu Yonah was talking about people, like that was the Gam Misrapid b'malachto achu lebal mashchis. Someone who's lax in his work is a brother to the master destroyer. And Rabbeinu Yonah said that's a case where you could make extra profit, but you don't, you know, and you're lax in your own work. I feel that is laxity, but I feel like that is a different thing than like the person who imagines that the results will come about. Like, let's say, like, what's the worst that can happen? Well, not the worst that can happen. But let's say, like, you didn't go back and check it, so you missed some points that you could have gotten, you know. But the guy who doesn't bring in his crops, like, his crops are done and he's starving, you know. Like, I feel like certainly emotionally it's a different idea, but I see the similarity, but I think emotionally it's in a different category. I think it's more like the Rebbeinu Yonah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably multiple things.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's not like it has to be one.
And yeah, I think this idea also applies when it's not entirely self-destructive. I think that's just like the extreme case.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, thanks.
We gotta go. See ya.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question about the sun thing.
Yeah.
Because I know the same thing happened last time. I don't know why it really just bothers me because I feel like I like taking the approach more of like I really like focusing on the words, which is weird because like we didn't necessarily do that so much.
That's okay. Look, you got your own Derek. You're in the Malbim's club. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel like, is there any? I mean, I'm assuming the Malbim. Does he speak about that? Like about the whole
Malbim over the summer?
He probably did.
Let's look and see what he says.
Yeah, Matt, the Malbim, by the way, and it works out for Ben, and it calls to mind, you know, Zochar Barucha.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, Mom has good ideas. I never criticize the mom's ideas. Just the Derek. Okay, he says Oger v'kais ben maskil kai tu achar hakatzir. So the that's what he said before is that the summer is after the harvest. But Oger hu misha malakit hagargarim echad echad. So the Oger, the gatherer, is the one who gathers the berries one by one. Again, I don't know if those are wheat berries or like other sorts of things. Should ben hamaskil ben malachto, son who is intelligent in his work, gam bakatzir she'ino od basade lezof v'lichnos adain osig legor hagargarim hanisharim. So the intelligent son, even after the harvest, when there's nothing more to gather and bring in, he will still involve himself to gather the remaining berries. So like he'll be picking for the little berries after the main harvest is already in. Near to Makatzir ben Mavish, but one who's asleep in the harvest is an embarrassing son. But Ben Mavish shu me'uchar tenua v'ha'atzel. So that is procrastination. Mu'uchar tenua. He's delayed in movement and he's lazy. Lo lavad shiradim b'kais. Not only is he going to be asleep in the summer, meaning in the in the later part. Kigam b'katzir, even in the harvest at the beginning, shekol hatavua basade, where all the harvest is all of the produce is in the field. Vihi ace avodas hasade. That's the time to work the field. Who nirdam? He's going to be fast asleep. Ino osim uma, and he won't do anything. Now we get to the mashal. V'yesh bazem melita, and this is an allegory. Haben amaskil yilmad gam beziknuso. So the intelligent son will learn even in his old age. That's in the summer or the harvest portion of one's life. The summer. Sorry, the summer of a person's life, meaning later. Hagam she'az lo yuchal l'chadesh harbe, even though he can't make a lot of chidushim. Rak legor ma'admad, he could just gather in a little bit by little bit. That's like the I think they say that about geniuses, right? About like the geniuses in like physics, that all of the breakthroughs occur like before the age of like 35 or something like that. Yeah, don't get nervous, Ricky. You know, but I think they also said that about, I think Rav Soloveitchik said that about himself also in some way. I don't remember the exact words, but like, you know, all the chidushim happen earlier, and after that, like you're just gathering little by little. Kamosh kasav halomid zakin lamahudome, like it says in Pirkei Avos, one who learns when he's older, then what is he comparable to? And then it goes on there. It says like like someone who's writing on highly erased and smudged parchment that's been erased a lot of times, so it doesn't like stick or something. And despite all this, even in the evening, he will not rest his hand. That's a reference to Koheles 11. But the embarrassing son will even be asleep in his youth, which is the time when you should be harvesting and gathering. So he's saying it's about learning, that you should, that there's, I guess, two extremes. Is that there's it's the same mistakes as we were talking about before with the Radak. Is like there's a time that's opportune for making progress and learning, and that's when you're young. And then there's and when you're older, there's just not as much time to gather and to gain in the same way. So if you squander this opportunity now, you're not going to get it back. You know, and when you're old, if you continue to, even though you know you're past your prime, if you continue to learn a little berry each day or whatever, then you'll still continue to make gains in accordance with your ability. So I think it's the same idea as the Radak. It's just applying it to the world of learning, which is the essential world, not just a harvest.
So do you think that he was, because it kind of sounds like he's talking about the foundations of learning rather than just like learning in general. Like, would you agree with that, or would you say?
I don't think he's talking about the foundations, because he uses the term lachadesh harbe, like, you know, which seems to be beyond the foundations, and he seems to be saying that the youth should be making gains in Chiddush. I mean, I would say that the youth should be working on foundations before he gets to Chiddush. You know, maybe in that day it's different. I think he's like talking about like a young Talmid Chacham or something already. Yeah.
But he doesn't really think about this whole sun thing then.
Interesting. Yeah, Donnie, did you say that you thought he was explaining sun?
Yeah, I think it does, because I think that it's really meant to be two extremes, and that goes back to the question of gathering and cutting and sleep in summer and versus the spring, is that the focus is on the ben. It really is talking about the fact that the child, the youth, those who have the energy, and it's not just in terms of chidushim, it's in terms of actually just being a sponge, where it's just so easy. And it's also the opportunity to do tshuva, because you're not set in your ways and your mind is still free and open and not constrained in a box. There's just that kind of idea, where the input output, and it'll never be easier, and it'll never be as, insightful.
I hear.
Yeah, I actually really like that idea. It's kind of stressful, honestly, but it's
well, you're in the prime time now. It's talking to you.
It's stressful.
I was afraid, actually, when there's a pasuk about tshuva like that in the Rambam that I mentioned before, was Zachares Barecha B'mei Bachur Sacha, the Rambam quotes from Koheles.
Right.
I remember worrying about that in yeshiva too.
Yeah.
That's just a way to underestimate how much more time you have in your youth and excuse it. It will eventually, you'll be able to look back, but don't worry. Shouldn't be pressure, but certainly not an excuse to think that anyone's missed the opportunity.
Yeah. In fact, if people have the patience for one 2-page thing, I recently started, I guess to some of my students around here, there's gonna be an old friend. I recently started rereading the letters of Seneca, hashtag the Stoic Jew podcast. This is not on the podcast yet, but his first letter is on saving time. And it's a very short letter. I just want to read it here because it's so good. He says, greetings from Seneca to his friend Lucilius. Apparently it's Lucilius. I would say Lucilius, but whatever. Continue to act thus, my dear Lucilius. Set yourself free for your own sake. Gather and save your time, which till lately has been forced from you, or filched away, or has merely slipped from your hands. Make yourself believe the truth of my words, that certain moments are torn from us, that some are gently removed, and that others glide beyond our reach. The most disgraceful kind of loss, however, is that due to carelessness. Furthermore, if you will pay close heed to the problem, you will find that the largest portion of our life passes while we are doing ill, a goodly share while we are doing nothing, and the whole while we are doing that which is not to the purpose. What man can you show me who places any value on his time, who reckons the worth of each day, who understands that he is dying daily? For we are mistaken when we look forward to death. The major portion of death has already passed. Whatever years behind us are in death's hands. Oh, youch. Okay, therefore, Lucilius, do as you write me that you are doing. Hold every hour in your grasp. Lay hold of today's task, and you will not need to depend so much upon tomorrow's. While we are postponing, life speeds by. Nothing, Lucilius, is ours except time. We were entrusted by nature with the ownership of this single thing, so fleeting and slippery that anyone who will can oust us from possession. What fools these mortals be! They allow the cheapest and most useless things, which can be easily replaced, to be charged in the reckoning after they have acquired them, but they never regard themselves as in debt when they have received some of that precious commodity, time. And yet time is the one loan which even a grateful recipient cannot repay. And then he asks a little thing about how you might ask me how I'm doing. He says, you may desire to know how I, who preach to you so freely, am practicing. I confess frankly, my expense account balances, as you would expect from one who is free-handed but careful. I cannot boast that I waste nothing, but I can at least tell you what I am wasting and the cause and manner of the loss. I can give you the reasons why I am a poor man. So that's a level. In other words, most people don't even realize that they're wasting time. if you were able to give an accounting of how much time you are wasting, that's a level already, you know, and that's what he's saying. My situation, however, is the same as that of many who are reduced to slender means through no fault of their own. Everyone forgives them, but no one comes to their rescue. Here's the end. What is the state of things then? It is this. I do not regard a man as poor if the little which remains is enough for him. Oh, this is a great mashal at the end. I advise you, however, to keep what is really yours, and you cannot begin too early. For, as our ancestors believed, it is too late to spare when you reach the dregs of the cask. That's the stuff, the disgusting stuff at the bottom of the wine bottle. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. It is too late to spare when you reach the dregs of the cask. Of that which remains at the bottom, the amount is slight and the quality is vile. Farewell. Okay, that's very, very similar to what the Malbim is saying, is that you know, when you get to the old age, like, it's not like you're reaping chidushim left and right, but you know, but you got to take what you can get. So, all right. So I think we did not waste the last hour and 22 minutes. So at least you can like chalk that up onto your accounts. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining as usual.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.